So I want to say good evening to you. And I hope everyone's doing okay. Although, Roy, I think you're by yourself in Gilad House now, aren't you? So you can only speak for yourself.
Yeah, I'm at my house, so but I can speak only for myself. Adi is learning over there, so.
Yeah. So, so for the next couple of weeks at least, and perhaps longer, we find ourselves again in a smaller area of movement. Kind of like being in a retreat center, but kind of not. Because everyone else around us is not considering it a retreat. So one of the really supporting factors of a retreat is that the Sangha around you, everybody's on the same page. Now, if you go outside for in your 1 kilometer radius, probably most of the people are not considering it a retreat experience. So it means that we still find ourselves in a very limited conditions, and yet we're still in the world. We're still very much worldly. So one of the things I wanted to discuss and think with you is how we can increase our sense of a retreat when our circumstances are limited. And when circumstances and conditions are not in our control, how we can include them in our intentions. So this is what I want to think about, because most of the time our conditions are not going to be exactly what we wish for, and that's an understatement. So, and if that's the case for most of our time here, it means we need to work with those conditions, and we need to include them on our path. In a way, make them our path. Instead of waiting for when those conditions will change so that I can get on my path again and go on retreat to a nice center somewhere, or go to Gilad House and sit with all the Hebre. So those are all really beneficial and fortunate circumstances. But most of the time that we're here, we're dealing with where we are right now, being at home and being by ourselves, or with somebody else, or one other, or 2 other people. But most of the time, it's a Sangha of 1. And the retreat center is your home. So if that's the situation for the foreseeable future, how can we strengthen it so that we can benefit in the same way, in a way that is not so different from if we were in, our favorite retreat center. I'm not trying to create a fantasy here, but I want to use the ingredients we have and cook with them. Some of you may be very well doing this already and have been doing this for a while, maybe starting with the first closure or starting with years back, you know. And at different times, and if anyone wants to, you know, give a suggestion of how you use your conditions wisely and beneficially, then please, you know, it's all helpful. I'm going to offer a few suggestions that I think are helpful in order to take the worldly conditions we have and turn them into opportunities for being on the path, for practice, for our practice. And that's pretty much because I chose to be a layperson, and all of us right now are lay people. And so we have to deal with these worldly conditions and deal with them well, so that we're not just waiting until we're done with these responsibilities so we can get to, you know, the mountaintop. We may never be done with them. And what if those responsibilities are, in fact, you know, our Dharma practice? So it's just something to consider. Today is September 21st, which is the autumn equinox, the first day of autumn. And it always brings to mind one of my favorite haikus by Basho, the first day of spring. I'm thinking about the end of autumn. That's his haiku. Now I used to think of it, I used to at one point think of it as, you know, he's being an honest sort of layperson, as, you know, and suggesting or showing us the type of honesty that lay people need, is to say, like, you can have perfect conditions and you're still wishing for something else. You're still somewhere else, right? But then there's another way that I came to see that haiku. First day of spring, which is really a celebration in cold climates. First day of spring, I'm thinking about the end of autumn. Well, it's not so much admitting that even when it's good, you still want more, you want something else, which is one truth. That's definitely part of our experience. But there's also the understanding that no matter how good it is, you know, autumn is the season of change. Autumn is the season that represents really impermanence, and in so many ways in nature. And there's the beauty in that impermanence too. So there's seeing the truth of anicca, the truth of impermanence and change, even at the peak of beauty and hope. You know, that when you feel like everything is perfect, the way you gain balance and non-attachment is by remembering autumn. You know, so if you remember autumn wherever you are. So here we are, you know, third day of the lockdown. I remember the end of autumn. Okay? So whether it is beautiful the first day of spring, or it's the middle of a lockdown, or you're limited, or it's the middle of a heat wave, or it's, you know, wildfires, we always need to keep autumn in mind. And autumn, the season of change, that, you know, this is going to change. You're going to read that to me, Roy? I can't see the chat. Talal said something.
No, it's regarding, I think, something. I told him that he's in the park, so he said that. But I was thinking, Daniel, that this haiku is also a bit like seeing the glass already broken. In that sense, yeah.
Definitely.
In the spring, you see the autumn coming.
Yeah. And so spring is valuable because I already see the trees are bare. I already see that the leaves have already fallen. So the buds are even more beautiful because I see the whole, the whole cycle of birth and death. Yeah. So remembering our death, which is sort of the key contemplation in the Dharma practice, is to remember, and that broken glass is just a metaphor also, and the end of autumn are metaphors not only for change, but the big change, that may I respectfully remind you, life and death are of supreme importance. So it's that death, that supreme importance of remembering death as, the great sort of awakening. Not that which is the depressing end, but that which is the true bell of awakening, that awakens us from this sort of illusion that things are going to stay the same, and they really aren't. So it can help us find a bit balance, and a little bit of perspective. Remembering death, remembering autumn, the broken glass, all of these things happening in the cycle of samsara and nirvana, life and death, ignorance and enlightenment, that we're passing through these cycles in the blink of an eye, that we remember and we forget, we remember and we forget. And you can be more gentle then with the forgetting and with your frustration and with your feeling of limitation and smallness, either physical or emotional or spiritual. And you can allow that a little more, because you know that this is part of that wheel, which is part of that wheel that's turning constantly. And the smallness will pass and the greatness will pass. So this is the remembering the end of autumn, in a sense. And that's not necessarily going to make us feel better or have a greater experience of practice while we are in a very limited place. But it is simply something to reflect every day, is to reflect upon the unity of life and death, on a daily basis. And that's an important reflection and contemplation in our practice on a daily basis. So so I want to then continue a bit with how to take real advantage of the time we have, because it really is passing quite quickly. It seems like the summer was quite long because we were all here, and we distract ourselves with travel, and it is a distraction to a certain degree. A lot of activity plans and excitement and then memories when we come back. Now we've just been here, and here we are again. So the long summer passed, and now we are with the autumn, and we're trying to be more present and accepting of this moment by moment, and to open up something in our hearts and minds. And I think one of the things we should first ask is, what does it mean, retreat? When we retreat is to pull back and to step back from worldly involvement in order to see more clearly. We want to gain more clarity. And so one of the things long meditation helps is it gives you some clarity into the nature of your mind, into the nature of your reactions, into the nature of your body, and the nature of change, into the nature of reality being, impermanent and causing us a lot of difficulty. Okay. And then our sense of self is a bit more fluid. So basically I described, anicca, anatta, and dukkha. So that's really what retreat is sort of opening for us, is a greater insight into that reality, into those truths. And we do that by not being involved so much with a lot of activity. because activity always places our minds in the activity, which is one way to be present. But that present mind, mindfulness in each activity, is mindfulness in each activity, but it's not going to create great insight. The great insight comes from sitting quietly and observing nature of mind. You know, so when you're mindful of an activity, you're not at the same time so much being mindful and gaining insight into the nature of mind. For that, you need stillness. You need stillness and silence. And this is what retreat is about. It's about creating an environment that supports the stillness and silence, which are necessary conditions for gaining insight into the nature of yourself. We'll be very mindful when we're in the world, but to gain deep insight into the nature of self and, and my own attachments and aversions and my own freedom or my own Buddha mind, to do that, we need some silence and stillness. And that's the purpose of retreat. Step back, create an environment. So one of the first prerequisites, the first necessary conditions for creating a type of retreat opportunity at home. Okay, and I want to give us sort of six conditions that will support a retreat experience at home on your own, given the reality we're in right now. Okay, so that we can each try to practice it and perhaps take advantage of this opportunity. So the first condition, obviously, first condition for any type of pursuing of the path and following the path and practicing is setting your intention. Is setting intention and your motivation, right? Why do I want to do this anyway? And that's a question like, is this a value? Is this a value to me? Why do I want to do this? And that's a question you need to clarify before you can create a type of commitment that's necessary in order to strengthen those or create those conditions. Because if you're just sort of doing it because it sounds like a good idea, or you had a good retreat experience in the past and you want to try to, have that again. So you got to remind yourself, just in the same way we contemplate life and death and the cycle of life and death, and we want to remember our own limited time here to sort of motivate our aspirations. So too, if you want to create some retreat conditions at home, you got to ask yourself, well, why is that important to me anyway? And, what is it good for? And what do I hope to realize, or, what do I hope to get out of this? So you gotta ask yourself, why is this a value to me? And that's the first thing, is set your intention. I want to do this because perhaps I've been in retreat experiences and I found it supremely beneficial. Or I'm at home a lot anyway, and I'm not able to get to a practice place. So I want to try to create more practice opportunities where I am. So you gotta set your intention, and you gotta want it. Okay, that's the aspiration. And want is different from desire. Okay, desire is an attachment, like I'm doing it because I want something out of it, like I'm kind of greedy. But aspiration is, I want to strengthen my practice because I want to open my heart and mind and be clearer and more compassionate and benefit myself and others. So if there's sort of a compassionate intention there as well, the bodhicitta, we call it, So, you can kind of reflect on intention. That's one thing, and you want it. And if it is of a central value to you, and then what you want to do is you want to create sort of what's called a container of stillness. That's what some teachers have called it, a container of stillness. Meaning you want to create an environment that is going to support this time. Okay. Now let's say the retreat experience that you have is actually going to be an hour, or it might be the whole day, right? When I'm talking about retreat experience or a container of stillness, I'm also including this with your daily meditation practice that you may have. Because in the same way, you can't just sit down and say, okay, meditate. You also need to create, even when you do meditation for half an hour in your day, you still need to, initially arouse your intention. You gotta create an environment that's going to support the stillness and quiet that you need for your sitting meditation. And that may be, having a sort of a special room, or having a corner, or having a cushion and a candle and a statue and some flowers. Or it may just be, that you need to shut off your phone and tell your roommate or your spouse or your children or your parents that, for this time, I'm simply not available, right? And you got to deal with work stuff to make sure that you won't get a call or something that, make sure that the time and the place are going to enable the stillness you need. Okay, the stillness in body and mind. Right. So that's sort of dealing with some external conditions that you need to take care of if you want to support a bit of a retreat experience at home. Okay, you got to take care of the details, right? And then once you take care of some of the basic details, you can enhance it. You can enhance the environment, right? Flowers, candle, incense, like the things if you expect when you go into a meditation hall that are there, but bring that into your meditation space. So just being in the space then shifts your mindset. Don't underestimate the support that your physical environment can give you, right? Now, sure, ultimately, we want to have that same state of mind anywhere, in the middle of a bus station or on a busy street or, at work. That's fine. But let's start with where we're at and create a special place that's going to hold you. So that container of stillness, you want to create that container of stillness. You want to clear away distractions, and you want to invite in some, support. Some support. Now, of course, you don't just sit down and see how it goes. Any retreat has a schedule. In some Zen monasteries, when they have a session, a retreat, the very beginning of the description, they say, let the schedule be your teacher. And there's something reassuring there. And it also invites and encourages and requires a certain amount of commitment and discipline. Now your schedule might be, okay, from 6:30 to 7. Okay, that might be your schedule, right? Or your schedule might be from like 6 to 9 at night. Okay, but whatever your schedule is, you have it set and you keep it. So there's a sort of inner commitment to an outer time. And that's important on retreat. Remember, the retreat schedule is fixed. It's non-negotiable. Right? It's creating a sort of inner commitment. And that's what the outer time does. Now remember, this is a commitment you're making to yourself. You're making to yourself. Now you can get up and say, like, I don't want this. But that's why the first condition is the most important one. That's your intention. You got to want this. You got to want it. Okay? So you gotta write your schedule ahead of time. You got to know what the times are. And part of that also inner conditioning and the working with outer conditions with setting up a container is if there are some details, like for instance, you need to have some food available, or you need to make sure, like, oh, you just got the conditions set. So one of the other conditions you might want is to have a Sangha member or a spouse or a friend in on it. They may not be practicing with you, but they may be your assistant, let's say, your retreat assistant. So you may want somebody to help you out a bit. Like, can you just make sure that there's some food heated up at 12 o'clock? Or can you just make sure that if there's any emergency phone call that, you answer it and tell them. And if it's like real emergency, interrupt me. Or can you just check up on me and make sure that, I'm okay? So these types of things. A retreat assistant, whether it's a spiritual friend, Kalyamana Mitra, or a just a regular friend, spouse, or somebody it's a support, okay? In the same way that when we sit together, we're kind of supporting each other. Right? So you may sit there because you know that someone's going to come and check up. Yeah, it's a low reason, but that's what people are helpful. Sometimes you're sitting to please the teacher. That's okay. Okay, that's okay, right? Because really, the teacher is just yourself. So that's the fourth condition, is that bring somebody in as a retreat assistant. Now, again, I'm also saying this in terms of even if you're sitting on a daily basis for half an hour. I had a friend who said, like, she was meeting with a friend every morning for 40 minutes for a Zoom sitting, just the two of them. They weren't doing it here at Gilad, or, they're just the two of them both wanted to do meditation. And they knew it was more likely that they'd do it if the other person was waiting for them, right? So that's a supportive condition for your retreat at home. It may just be, if you're living with someone, for them to say to you in the morning, have you sat yet? Did you do your practice? Or how's your practice? So the other thing is, so now we've got our, we set our intentions, okay. We set up our container of silence, meaning we take care of our environment and of our external, our worldly needs and conditions. Our responsibilities. We have an assistant or someone who's in on it. We have the schedule, we know when and what. Part of the schedule also, and this is part of the schedule, is not only the times of when you're sitting, but what practice are you doing? So during a day of practice, or even during an hour, or during a half hour, part of the intention is also knowing, and part of the schedule is knowing, what practice are you actually doing? Now, many of us are involved in more than one practice. Even when it's involved in the Buddhist practice, the Dharma practice, you may be involved in, there may be a sitting meditation, and then there may be walking meditation. And if you're studied other Buddhist or practice in other Buddhist places, you may be working with a koan, or you may be doing some mantra practice. You may be doing some tonglen, giving and receiving practice. Okay, you may be working with some slogans, in Tibetan slogans. So you may be doing pujas. you may be doing different things that you've done throughout your experience. And again, we're not doing it in the same session, but you may have a schedule where you know which practice you're doing when. I'm going to alternate sitting and walking, or I'm going to do metta in the beginning of my practice, and then I'm going to, focus on shamatha breath meditation, okay, for 2 more sessions, do some walking, and then I'm going to do some more metta. Now, you may decide to do that. You may have a yoga practice that you want to do, which is body movement. You may do Tai Chi, okay? You may do art practice. So these different practices, you may do work practice. You may want to include, in fact, cleaning the house as part of your practice. In every monastery I've gone to, there's work practice. Always there's work practice, okay? Nobody, does your dishes for you, right? So work practice is an important part that you can actually include as part of your retreat. Now, let's say you don't have a long retreat going on. Let's say it's your half hour. Well, you know what? You're probably going to have breakfast or coffee after you're sitting. Well, that can be included in your retreat. What I'm saying is that whatever practice you're doing on a daily basis already, you can already, without making it into a big deal, extend it. Okay, you can extend it to include more as part of your retreat experience. So instead of just doing your half hour or 45 minutes or hour meditation in the morning, and then some chanting after if you do chanting, or some yoga, extend it into breakfast. And then extend that into work practice where you're washing, or making the bed, or whatever. All of that can be part of your retreat experience. Consider the possibilities, all right? A lot of the things you do in a monastery or in a retreat center, you're already doing at home, but you just don't consider it as part of your retreat. If you start to consider it as part of your retreat, it will be. And all of a sudden, you've got a lot more practice going on at home without having to change everything. Okay? The other thing is, now you're involved in entering the schedule. The intention is something to think about, but and to reflect on in order to get you committed. The other aspect, though, is, of course, expectation. Everybody needs to sort of spend a couple minutes to temper. Temper means to, relax your expectations. To relax your expectations. Just as we know that, every morning the meditation is sometimes good, sometimes bad. How's your practice? My practice is the commitment. It's not the results. Okay. My practice is the commitment to the sitting, not what happens in the sitting. All right. So that's what I mean by expectation. Your expectation is let the schedule be your teacher. Whatever happens, you also know that sometimes the longer you're involved in practice in one day, okay, the sort of more difficult it may become. And it takes about 5 or 6 days to get over that. But initially, if you have like a 1 or 2 day thing, it doesn't necessarily become easier the more you do it. So you can already expect that. You can already expect that you're going to face resistance and difficulties. So once you expect that, you can just sort of, accept it. You can accept it as part of the retreat experience. Basically, that's life. And finally, 2 more things. No, the last thing is, I talked about having a retreat assistant. The last aspect, the last factor that we really should figure in and factor in to our home retreat is including teachings in your experience, in your time, in your schedule. So whether they are a recorded Dharma talk, whether it's some mindful reading of some teaching. Definitely having some teaching that you've already chosen beforehand. You don't go online and say, what am I looking for now? What's going to be a good thing to listen to? No, you should already know beforehand. You should set it beforehand. The day before, or when you're creating your schedule, you should already have a link to whatever teaching you want, or have your book and have it open to where you're going to read, as something that is sort of part of the retreat experience. Every retreat has teachings, and this is a way of sort of creating that framework. So again, just to go over those 6 conditions that are going to help us. And I hope you do see that when I'm talking about retreat, I'm talking about a retreat that can be half an hour. I'm talking about a retreat that can be 10 hours. All these conditions, even with the Dharma talk, even just reading a paragraph of teaching after you've finished your one sitting for the day, that still is part of your retreat experience. But basically, what I'm trying to do is expand our idea of what it means to be practicing, so that retreat is no longer something we go away for, but something we just go into. So you want to set your intention, right? Why are you doing this? You need to want it for your practice. You need to set up your container of stillness, which is dealing with the outer environment, clearing away the distractions, and inviting in some details that will support you, even just in terms of what you see and what you smell and what you hear. You want to set up a schedule when you're sitting, for how long, what practices you're doing. Okay, so the schedule is important, right? And again, the schedule can be one meditation, it can be many throughout the day. You want to have a retreat assistant, and it can be also be someone, if you're living on your own, it can be someone you can ask to, I don't know, give you a call or send you a text or something. I hope you're sitting. It can be small, right? Just to know that they're there and they're with you on this. Okay, that's the sense of Sangha. You want to have realistic expectations. And finally, the last thing is you want to include teachings in your daily practice and your retreat. So those are the 6 factors and 6 conditions that are going to support you on a retreat sort of experience at home or wherever you are, and most importantly, for however much time it is, whether it's half an hour of your day or whether it's all day. These 6 conditions are necessary supports for the type of retreat mind we want to have, which then will make the experience, give you the retreat experience wherever you are. And the only other thing I want to add to that, if anyone else has a suggestion, it's most welcome, of course, from your own experience. I'm sure you've, had experience and been doing this. So if anyone has anything else you want to add to that, please do. The only other thing I want to add to has to do with the first condition, which is setting up your intention. And it's not just about it's not just about awakening the aspiration and asking yourself, why am I doing this, and answering it. But even before that, I think there's the daily need of taking refuge. So I think taking refuge, taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, if you want to define this path in your life, that's a real important aspect and a daily thing that people who are practicing are doing, is that you remind yourself of the teachings, and the community and the awakened mind and teacher that are really going to support you on this path. And that's what you're going to rely on doing your retreat. You're not on your own. You may be doing a solo retreat by yourself, but you're not on your own. This is what Refuge is about, that you have Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha supporting you. And by yourself, this is what has supported, hundreds, thousands, and maybe millions of solo practitioners throughout the millennia, is Refuge, is knowing that I'm sitting by myself, or I'm practicing and struggling with the truths of life and death by myself, and trying to really awaken, and trying to have an open, good heart, and to be compassionate and kind and clear, and to know what's what. But I'm not on my own. Okay, I'm not inventing the wheel. So this is what Refuge in the Triple Gem is for us, is the remembering that, Buddha, the awakened mind, and the teacher that has opened up this path is supporting me in this. And the teachings of the Dharma are supporting me in this. And the community of awakened ones and my spiritual friends, and ultimately the whole world around me, is supporting me in this. So, and there are obviously many ways we can understand Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And I don't want to go over it too much, but one of the teachers, in fact, the first ancestor of Zen back in the 400s, his name was Bodhidharma, and he was an Indian teacher who crossed over into China to teach Zen. And in one of his famous talks called the Bloodstream Sermon, he gave this, and this is the way he understood refuge in Buddha. So I just wanted to share it with you. This is what it said. To find a Buddha, you have to see your own nature. Whoever sees his or her own nature is a Buddha. If you don't see your nature, being mindful of Buddhas, reciting sutras, making offerings, and keeping precepts are not going to do it. To find a Buddha, you have to see your nature directly. Your nature is the Buddha. And the Buddha is the person who's free of plans, free of cares. If you don't see your nature and run outwards and seek external things, you'll never find a Buddha. The truth is that there's nothing to find. But to reach such an understanding, you need a good teacher, and you need to struggle to make yourself understand. Life and death are important. Don't suffer them in vain. So this is sort of, that paragraph kind of summarizes a lot of things. So we have the teacher, we have the Buddha who gave us the teachings, right? So we have the raw ingredients of what we need. Okay, and as I was suggesting in the beginning, being mindful out in the world, even of external things, is great. And even chanting and doing a lot of practices may seem to help us get some peace of mind. But we don't go on retreat for peace of mind. That may happen, and that may initially be your intention. I need some more peace in my life. That is a good start. But it's just a beginning. We want to see into our nature directly. To see through this illusion of self and to really discover Buddha, to realize Buddha, which is the Sanskrit for, an awakened mind, an awakened being. So we want to see the truth of our own nature by seeing through the illusion of what's holding us back and making us suffer. And this is what retreat is about. It's about seeing reality. And that is a really, noble intention. So when we take refuge, this is really what we are aspiring to. Now, one of the other things that is a supporting condition of a retreat, I just want to be clear that it's an important one, of course, and it's important for your retreat of daily life and retreat in a retreat center, are the precepts that we take. So it's kind of hard to meditate and have a clear mind in the samadhi if you're causing harm or you're not keeping the other precepts. For instance, if you're taking lives, or if you're speaking untruthfully, or if you are, having misusing sexuality, or if you're taking intoxicants, it's kind of hard to meditate, or if you're taking things that are not freely given. So those are the 5 precepts, that a lay person takes on, but then they become more sort of conscious when you are in the retreat mind. So as part of the conditions before those 6 conditions, you could say is condition 0. It's like the condition before any of the other ones even begin is the keeping of the precepts, of course. So when you're on retreat, anytime we don't want to take life and cause harm, but on retreat mind, we want to be super careful of that. Now, we abstain usually from any sexuality just to make sure the precept against abusing sexuality is taken care of. We're not going to take anything that's not freely given, okay? And that's where maybe a spiritual friend can help you and say, can you bring my lunch over, We also, of course, are not going to take any harmful or intoxicants. Now, coffee, of course, and caffeine are not considered intoxicants on that same level, which is quite a compassionate inclusion. And then speech, keeping right speech and not speaking any untruth is usually taken care of during retreat by maintaining noble silence. So that's a decision you have to make as one of the preconditions for a retreat. Are you, for the time of your retreat, going to simply abstain from speaking? It's a very supportive condition. And keeping noble silence is a really good practice for a certain amount of time. Now, if you're living in the world and you're practicing and you got to deal with others, you may not be able to maintain it for the whole day. But even a very busy person like Mahatma Gandhi took every Monday for silent day, and he'd write notes. So you can write notes. But if you can't do that, then maybe you just want to keep your meditation time and make sure that it's not going to be interrupted by any speech. So noble silence and right speech are definitely precepts you want to take. If you want to kind of extend it to sort of the 8 traditional precepts of, not taking the 3 other ones that they add on retreat times of not eating afternoon, or not having any entertainment or wearing jewelry or perfume, and not sleeping on a high bed. Those are the 3 additional ones that often are taken during retreat time. Those may help you, with the retreat mind that we want to encourage. So That may mean just like sitting on the floor because maybe you're not going to be sleeping during the day. It may mean, you're not going to take a shower during the retreat time. You're going to take a shower and have shampoo and nice smells after the retreat is done. Or it may mean, taking care of your food before noon. So those are helpful conditions for a retreat. Again, all of this, the precepts though, are just kind of something that we always want with us, the 5 ones for sure. But during retreat mind, we simply make them more conscious. We make them more part of our, awareness and intention and commitment. So one of the, we'll finish this, this sort of encouragement talk with a way that one of the Korean Master Bunam, a Korean teacher, defined the refuge in Buddha. And he said, taking refuge in Buddha, I take refuge in my own natural sanity and goodness. And this is something that I think when we talk about Buddha nature and Bodhidharma saying mind is Buddha, and you're like, that's just language that doesn't speak to me. That may be so. But when Master Bunam says, I take refuge in my own natural sanity and goodness, I think that's something that can be easily related to. That we're not trying to become somebody we're not. We're trying to let go of all the nonsense that we're carrying on, that we're holding on to. And when you let go of that nonsense, and you see clearly that you have clarity and you have love, that you have kindness and compassion, and you have sanity, that we're not deceived by all of our desires, then that's the sort of an insight that a retreat can offer by stepping back from all the external objects that are pulling us and making us forget what? Our own sanity, natural sanity and goodness. And that's what stepping back and stepping in can encourage. So we're already kind of compelled into this situation that we are sharing. And I think we can use it as an opportunity to cultivate more of a retreat mind with some of these approaches.